go ahead and get started with our board curriculum committee. Welcome everybody. Everyone is here. We're going to start off, since we don't have any public comments, we'll go to updates with Julie Davis, Finance and Operations.
All right, well, welcome. Yesterday morning we held our board finance committee meeting, and we had several things on the agenda. Under our discussion and information section, we talked about monthly financial statements. I gave a very brief bond construction update. Not a lot going on right now. It's kind of like that lull. I shared a big check. We got another donation from Tower Pinkster related to our energy efficiency or DPAC for Collins and Thornhill project. That was $55,000, so that was fun. But we also talked about operating millage, and so I want to just walk through this piece of today, and then the other things that we talked about at the meeting. Can you guys see that okay? Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so just a reminder what the operating millage is. That's a component of our foundation allowance, and that whole funding mechanism was through Proposal A that was passed back in 1994. So the per pupil foundation allowance is comprised of two different things. That's operating millage on our non-homestead properties, so not primary residences, businesses, some agricultural, those types of things. If they happen to have a second home, that would be subject to it. And then also some state funding. So we know that with the operating millage in that formula, that the state assumes every district is levying the full 18 mills. And back in 2023, we went out to our voters because we weren't levying that because of required rollbacks due to the property values increasing faster than the rate of inflation. But again, it's important to note that the state is assuming every district is levying that 18 mills when they're calculating their portion of the foundation allowance, right? Our per pupil amount was $9,608. They're assuming that we are levying, I'm going to make this number up, it's around $2,000 a pupil for the operating millage, and then they're making up that difference with state money. So that's the what behind the operating millage. But I want to talk through then our historical of where we have been as a system. So back in 2005, we were renewed for 10 years. We went to our community, they approved that. At that point in time, the language on the ballot had something to the effect of renewing the 17.94 mills, and we also asked for an increase of 0.4 mills. Well, if you do the math, those two together are more than the 18 mills, right? So you can get authorization for greater than 18 mills, but you could only levy not more than the 18 mills. And the reason why you go out for and try to get authorization for greater than 18 mills is really to provide a little bit of protection for those required headly reductions. And that's when the property values are rising faster than the rate of inflation. We are required to then reduce the amount we are levying. So that's why you have that little bit of cushion. So we did that back in May of 2005. Well, that was for 10 years again, and that expired in the 2015 levy. So, and when we renewed it again, we did another 10 years. So you're kind of seeing our pattern here. We've been on this 10-year cycle. That was a renewal as well in the language. At that point, we were still above the 18 mills. So we just simply renewed for 18.3424 mills. That one is expiring with the 2025 levy. So that's one of the ones that we're working under right now. That's covering a part of our foundation allowance. And then as a board and administration, we shared with you that because of the heavy rollbacks, we were not actually levying the full 18 mills. So you authorized a question to be put on the ballot in November of 23. That was for 2 years, for the final 2 years, so for 2024 and 2025, to restore that up to make up that difference. And so we request for an increase of half a mil that was approved by our community. Again, we're capped at the 18, so it took us a little over the 18, but we were able to then levy 18. It represents about $395,000, $400,000. This one also expires with the 2025 levy. So wanted to share the information with you because we then have been looking at and considering what do we do for our next years, we want it to be something different. You know, there's interest in the board in making sure, is there a way we can do this so that it's free for us when we go out for the election, right? Can we tie it to whether it's a gubernatorial or presidential election date? So we work with our bond counsel and our bond counsel, I'm doing that too. We work with our legal counsel, and so, you know, what we will be bringing to you next month for a recommendation is for a 6-year renewal on the ballot. The language would be similar to what we saw in 2005, and that we'd be renewing the 18.1297 mils. That's our current authorization level. We'd also put in there an increase of a 0.5 mil. Again, that protection and that cap are buffering rather for those required rollbacks for Headley. This represents about $24 million of our revenue. So again, this is a big component of, you know, how we're operating on a daily basis. If approved with the 6 years, it would expire with the 2031 levy, which means we could tie it into the November 2030 presidential election. So one, that would help us in terms of cost, right? We wouldn't be having to foot that bill. But it also then would provide a backup election date. If for some reason it wasn't approved by the community in that November election, we could go back to them in May so that we can try again and get that approved. So just putting this out here for you, again, $24 million is what it would represent. We're looking at that 6 years of renewal. And to give you a sense of, if we didn't get that $24 million, because if it's not approved by the community, we can't levy it, so the revenue is not coming in, that would represent about 175 teaching positions across the system. So it's a significant amount of money. But we shared this with Board Finance, and we wanted to share it with you as well as a Board Curriculum Committee, and so we are planning on bringing this back as an action item at our February meeting. Okay? All right, I'm going to stop sharing because I'm going to hit the other things that we talked about. And then we had several action items that we had on the agenda as well. Central High renovation, so that was out to bid, and those bids were received in December. Great participation. There were 22 bid categories, 71 bids in total. So we're recommending that project to be approved in the amount of a little over $26.2 million. Huge. It's probably the biggest one that I've done since I've been here. But exciting work. Bids came in very favorable, a big savings on that. And so there was a component, if you probably don't remember, but at the presentation, when GMB was here sharing what we were going to do, one of the components that we kind of took off the table because we thought we were over budget at that time, and we were, as we were designing, was a small addition to help with some athletics stuff. Cheer, rowing, they could really use it for anything, kind of a multi-purpose space. Because it's kind of a standalone project, can be a standalone project, we're starting to look at that because the savings was a decent savings. So we might be bringing something back to you later at a subsequent meeting. But excited about the Central High project. We also have a recommendation to replace the Eastern Chiller. It's been on the fritz. It's been undersized for years. The staff can probably tell you that, anybody that works in that building. So we put that out to bid, and we are recommending the low bidder, which is Right Way Plumbing and Heating. That amount is a little over $1.3 million.
Sorry, I have a question. Back on the Central. Yeah. Did we choose a who?
There are because there are 22 bid categories, so there are 22 different contractors. So if you go into the Board Finance packet, there's a letter of recommendation from OAK, our construction managers, and then there's a one-page summary. So you can see each of the bid categories, who the contractor is, and what their amount is. And then at the bottom of it, it talks about here's how much we're budgeting for contingency for the CMP. So you'll find out all that on that summary. And then there's also the detailed bid tab. So you can see everybody who bid on each of the bid categories. So all that information is out there.
Julie, I have a question about that as well. I went through all those tabs, and there's at the end of one of the final quote, there's an adjustment line. It's not a huge number. I was just like curious on what that adjustment was for. I think it's like, I might be less.
On the summary?
Yeah, on the summary. I just didn't like, it's like the whole quote and it says adjustment. And I was just wondering what that adjustment was. Is that something that we see? It's more of a finance question. Is that something we see all the time? Me being the first time looking at something, I was like, oh, is this we use that as a, if there's, like you said, a contingency fund or something we need additional dollars for, I can highlight it and send it to you.
Yeah, or we
It's
can
fine.
at the end of
After-
the
yeah,
meeting,
I
let's
just was-
not hold it, so
Yeah, I don't wanna
look at it.
derail the meeting on that, but I just was like, oh, like, and how many times do we see an adjustment, and it could have just, it's just a finance question, so. I'll follow up.
Yeah, okay,
Thank you.
alright, well, at the end of the meeting,
No
let's
problem,
not.
thank you.
Alright, and then we also have a recommendation to update some of the mechanicals over at Central Middle. I know it seems weird, cause we just finished that building, but we're going back in, doing some unit vents and air handling units. So there was actually only one, contractor bid on that, that was Right Way Plumbing and Heating. They do a lot of work in the district, but, so we're recommending them. It's a little over $1.6 million, for that project. Alright, Northern High cafeteria furniture. So we have a recommendation. This was kind of fun. This was a really fun project because we got to work with students on this, which was really great. So we're recommending replacing their cafeteria furniture. I joke that it's probably the same one, furniture that was there when CJ was there. So total amount is a little over $370,000. Several vendors, Custer, Duell, Great Lakes Interface, for that project, but kids are really looking forward to it. And our hope is that it will be in with a spring break install, so at least the seniors that participated and the seniors that are in the school can see it. Because the whole student body got to vote on which the option they wanted, so that's kind of fun.
Where does the old stuff go? We just try.
Depending on what it is.
If it's been there since CJ's been there, it's been there a while. I don't want it, no. I was just wondering, is there
So some of
output
what
for
we'll
that? Or?
do is, we will work with a vendor who will actually take it, will come and trash it, but what they'll do is they'll take it apart and they'll, sell
Okay.
the metals and give us the check
As in
from
we
that.
can scrap it out. I'm not
they
saying it's a
track it
revenue stream,
on-
but I just was
Yeah,
wondering.
they include that information on the
Okay.
invoice, and when they charge us for the disposal, then they say, here's the credit for what we got for, the metal recycling.
Sure.
We also have a recommendation for the office furniture for over at the new Eastern Middle School addition, which is exciting. Interface interiors for an amount not to exceed $84,000, so that's fun. We worked with, that office staff to do that.
When is the projected?
We think we're gonna be moving them in April.
Okay.
Yeah, like on the all the updates, I've been saying May, but
Yeah.
I think we think we might be able to manage moving in during
That's great.
spring break
Yeah.
for that, so I probably just totally jinxed it, but
Okay.
that's what we're thinking. And then the last thing we talked about is a budget update, and Mallory's already digging in, she's a numbers person. But I'm not gonna spend a ton of time, which sounds really weird, right? But, you each have a packet to go through. If you wanna flip to page 2, I'm just gonna quick touch on a couple of the major changes, and some of them you know about because we've talked about them briefly. Right, when we adopted the budget last June, we used a set of assumptions. One of those assumptions was, that we were gonna receive $241 per pupil increase, because that was based on the governor's proposal. Well, we all know that didn't happen. So that's accounted for in this. Enrollment loss was a little bit more than what we had projected, so we're accounting that, in this as well. Some state categoricals changed related to mixers and some other things, so that is in that. So a lot of different moving parts in revenue, and you've got that all, in your packet. So bottom line is revenue, we're estimating is gonna increase a little under $1.3 million. And then on the expenditure side, the biggest piece is contract settlements, right? When we adopted the budget in June, we were still negotiating, so we didn't know what that would be, so we didn't include anything into the budget for that. In addition, we were able to reduce some more positions than what we had included in the original budget. Kind of that whole kit and caboodle is about $4.5 million increase on our expenditure side. And then with the state's adoption of the budget and how they did some of that retirement, that 147C categorical, so that's the money that comes in and goes right back out reduced our expense. So on the expense side, overall, we're looking at about a $2.8 million increase. So what does that mean for the bottom line if you flip the page? This is kind of what you would see in the resolution. The resolution is also included in your packet. But on that far right column, you can see the difference between the two revenues, 131.5 to 132.8. Just briefly spoke about that. Same on the expenditure. So the board adopted budget back in June, had us using about $1.5 million, and with this amendment, we're anticipating that to be a little over $3 million. Again, if we spend every single dollar and all the revenues exactly come in, but you can see our bottom line then, fund balance at June 30 would be about $21.4 million, or about 15.75%. So that was a super, super quick rundown of the budget amendment, but Sean, I'll get you my contact information if I didn't already. But questions between now and Monday's meeting when you see this on the consent agenda, then feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call. Happy to meet with you, talk over the phone, whatever questions you have, not only about the budget, but any of the action items. All right, done.